So, Caitlin, are we actually going to do this?
Absolutely, Andy.
Hello, I'm Andrew Wardlaw. I'm in London.
And I'm Caitlin McLean, coming to you from New York City. In our day jobs, Andy and I are helping brands create better product experiences.
And when we're not doing that, you might find us skulking around the world's supermarkets hunting down the very latest products.
That's right. We love discovering products that do something unexpectedly good, something new, something different, something that surprises us. So, Andy, on your recent trip to New York City, what did you make of Trader Joe's?
Yes, an Englishman in Trader Joe's. Whoa, I mean, it's a shrine, isn't it, Caitlin? I am quite miserable that you have Trader Joe's over there, and we don't here in the UK. You know, before I travelled, people were asking me, oh, you must buy this, you must try that. I've got this everything but the bagel sesame seasoning blend here, and I don't even know what that is. What was the other one? The Speculoos Crunchy Cookie Butter Spread. I have no idea.
Yeah, there's quite the range, and it's definitely a bit cultish over here. But I have to give it to Joe. He's quite a shrewd businessman. So Barry Schwartz, if you'll recall, he wrote about the paradox of choice. He pointed out that one of the reasons for Trader Joe's success is actually its limited ranges. We see sales per square foot at a Trader Joe's around $1,700 versus the same square footage at Whole Foods around a $900 average. So a significant difference there.
That is. And when I think about it, not only were there very few brands on the shelves, but there was actually very few products for each of the categories. And I can see how that is helping Joe control his costs. But, you know, paradoxically, Caitlin, I think it makes it easier for shoppers like myself to find something new, you know, discover something new. You go around that supermarket with FOMO like never before. I've never experienced anything like it anywhere else. All feels very curated. Even down to the handwritten shelf-edge labels, you know?
I agree. It's a special touch. The packaging feels quite individualistic, right? Got those hand-drawn styles. It generates more of that artisanal kind of crafted feel.
And also, I think a lot of the packaging was bright. It was upbeat. It was exciting. Very Gen Z, you know?
Yeah. So I've got to know, Andy, which products made it into your basket?
Yes. Well, I went around the store in its entirety and then I went back. And I think the first thing I chose was the green tea mochi from the freezer. Now, I think Trader Joe's makes frozen foods much more impulsive than I'm used to. I mean, some of that is due to the fact that they're in a chest freezer. There is no glass door creating a barrier between me and the product. Trader Joe's unexpected cheddar cheese, which I later found out was because it blows your mouth off. Spicy honey with chili extract. Never seen anything like that before. Ghost pepper potato chips. New. Dark chocolate power berries. And I've tried these. I love these. They seem to combine a sort of sweet, tart and chocolatey flavour all in one slight, you know, morsel bite. Jojo's cookies and cream granola. Great way to start the day. And you know, many of the products are organic. And that only goes to serve this idea that they are better than perhaps branded offers are generally.
Well, I think further elevating this lore of Trader Joe's is the idea that it's not available outside of the store. You're only able to get the products there. There's no e-commerce route, which is certainly unusual in the age of the internet.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I suppose that makes a store visit all the more special if you can only buy them in the store, you know. Now, look, if you love rummaging through supermarkets as much as we clearly do, then this is the podcast for you. Each episode, we're going to be calling out those products that are breaking conventions or pushing boundaries or even elevating experiences for people.
And in this first episode, we're going to shine a spotlight on the best products from stores' own brand ranges. So here in the US, Sukarna has measured private label unit share at 25.5% in 2023, which is up from 24.7% in 2022. We see that own brand and private label can now match the quality of leading brands, and store brands are becoming audacious. They're developing unique and innovative products that big brands really haven't been able to tap into yet. So later on, I'll definitely report back on those Trader Joe's snacks that you brought here in New York City, Andy.
Ah, yes, those savory mochi bites. I remember those.
So let's get on with the show.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so it's time to kick off our first Glimmer or Gimmick feature. Yes. So this is the part of the podcast where we are going to take a product that's benefiting from a lot of hype and get an expert's view on whether it's the glimmer of something new and different, or maybe it's adding to the pile of mediocre malaise. Now, this week, we've been lucky enough to get hold of a brand new plant-based, zero-alcohol, agave-based spirit. Snappy. Mexican spirits have been soaring, haven't they, in popularity recently. 2023, I think more consumers apparently traded up to premium tequila than any other spirit. And bartenders have been using tequila and mezcal for full effect. And now they've been experimenting with Sotol. Hope I'm saying that right. It's a non-agave spirit made from a type of shrub, and it might have its day sooner than you think because there's a global agave shortage on the cards. Now I've got a sensory expert in the building, Christine Barnegat, and you're here to tell us like it is.
Hi, Andy, and it's so exciting because what we're trying today is claim to be the world's first and only non-alcoholic spirit made from real blue agave. And it's using traditional mezcal and tequila-like distillation techniques. So it has basically a lot of history to it. And we're really also what makes it kind of hype-worthy is that the backer is Lewis Hamilton.
Oh.
So there's a celebrity thrown in here. There are two expressions that you can actually buy at the moment, which is the Almave Amber distilled non-alcoholic blue agave spirit, which has been created for sipping, and a Blanco blue agave spirit, which has been designed for mixing. And what we've got today is the sipping version, so the amber liquid.
Right. So, this is a podcast. You're going to have to describe the bottle for us.
Sure. And first also, I will mention the price because it is £36 for a 700 milliliter bottle.
Yeah.
So it is on the expensive premium side.
$46 actually in America.
Yes.
Yeah.
And by looking at it, definitely the design of a bottle says premium. I love the colour, love the amber, the shape, which has that pyramidal shape that you would also kind of expect with Mexico. It has a lot of etching and embossing, so both, which feels super tactile. It has also the blue agave actual etching of the plant. And really love the textural properties of the bottle. It has a really good weight. It's quite heavy. It has wood on the lid.
Yeah, I noticed that.
All of that really ticks all my boxes for something that sits really nicely for what would be looking also like an alcohol bottle, really.
I mean, it does look very elegant. It looks very distinctive as well, which of course is important in this market. We ought to try it, don't you think?
Of course we do.
Can you pour some?
Yes, I will. First, I have to open. Oh, it's a screw top.
Now, we had this in the fridge overnight, so it should be nice and cool. So what colour would you describe this, Christine?
Well, I must admit, that is one of the things where I'm now starting to be a little bit disappointed because I would not describe this as amber. For me, it's more yellow. When you say amber, I'm really expecting those warm tones, like the amber stones, so something that is more orangey brown, has more depth to it. This, I'm afraid, is a bit lager-like.
Right,
it's a bit pale and a bit yellowish, so I was expecting something a bit richer in colour.
Now, this is positioned as a sort of alt tequila, isn't it? So I'm about to sip this.
Yes.
I am expecting a bit of challenge. I should not be able to knock this back. Although, saying that, tequila is often used in that way. But I am expecting a bit of challenge.
Yes, a little bit of complexity, something obviously changing would be nice to obviously bring that sipping experience to the fore. Absolutely.
Shall we?
Just on the viscosity also, on the pouring, it is obviously on the thin side. So obviously I'm not expecting something as viscous potentially as some whiskey.
Not as syrupy as you'd expect.
Yes,
right, okay.
Maybe.
Okay, let's go for it.
Let's go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
There's a little bit of heat building.
There's a bit of hill building, but what I really, really like is that never had blue agave before, so it's obviously something new. It really does change because the first thing that you have is that zesty cooling sensation, which I'm assuming therefore is the blue agave in its own. And then you have the build-up of spice notes, that kind of vanilla also running through.
Yeah.
And you really get that kind of warming on the tongue that starts to develop. So I can really see as a sipping exercise that this is what is going to build. But the first sensation, it's really quite complex and also changes quite rapidly. So that makes it more interesting for sipping because it actually changes a lot.
But I'm on my fourth sip, Christine, and I am not getting the pushback, if you like, you know. I could imagine if this was a tequila, I'd have a screwed up face by now.
But now, yes, we probably
this
would
is quite
have.
pleasant. It's very pleasant.
But it is pleasant. And I think that for some people, really that spice note, that pepper note that you get, that actually gets you at the back of the throat, really start to come through, creates those warming tones that you would get in alcohol. So for a non-alcoholic product, I would say that this is definitely more interesting and more challenging and more complex than some that I've tried throughout the category. This is actually really trying to bring something that is more, you know, temporal and changing throughout.
And the company says that it was created with a new distillation process that captures the complexity and delicate flavors of freshly milled agave without producing alcohol. So complexity.
Definitely get that.
Right.
And I also get the delicate flavor because that very first hint that you get, that slight zest and that really kind of nearly cooling sensation, it's more for me a sensation than the flavor. But I really think that as a first sip is really interesting and quite new and quite cleansing. And then to then get all of the peppery, the warming, the spice notes, the vanilla coming through is very different. So I think it's really interesting that you get both cooling and warming at the same time. Well, not at the same time, but in the same product, in the same drink. So I think it is definitely something that brings something different.
Right.
And is definitely a good addition to the non-alcohol. Do I justify the cost is where...
It does set expectations when it's
sets
$46 a bottle.
expectation.
Yeah.
So I think it is definitely more interesting. It is more suited to sipping than other products. However, would you really sip that once you get used to it? Can you actually not drink it fairly quickly still throughout an evening is where I would question the total cost.
You can drink this more quickly. I've got a heat that's even more pronounced now.
Yeah.
But I could...
And it's still pleasant.
Finish the bottle.
Yes.
So, okay, Christine, so we've established, I think, that it is not hitting all the same notes as the alcoholic version. I guess that's no massive surprise. But I think the big question is, you know, as people elevate their home bars post-pandemic, do you think that this product has the potential to be, you know, a useful addition to the repertoire of spirits and alt spirits for modern day cocktail drinking and mixing?
Yeah, I think it definitely brings something that is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So if you've never tried Blue Agave, I think that the experience is definitely pleasant and interesting. And yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to force you. Glimmer or gimmick?
For the price, I will still say gimmick.
More gimmick.
Or
okay.
Something that becomes more niche.
Right. Very honest. It is pleasant.
It is
and
pleasant.
I do encourage people to go out and try it because
Absolutely.
It's all about experiences nowadays, isn't it? So, but yes, it's a gimmick for us.
For the moment, yes.
Thank you, Christine.
No worries, Andy.
So you're listening to the Impact Makers podcast, and this is the News Muse. So this is the part of the show where we make some time and pedal backwards, revisit an industry story that we think deserves a little more consideration. Now, I spotted this story on the Food Navigator website in February 2024, and it says, removing labels, Nestlé urges a more modest approach and greater focus on taste to spur plant-based development. Now, it's no secret that plant-based meat alts are struggling of late. We've seen several high-profile exits, including here in the UK. Nestlé's Garden Gourmet and Wonder brands disappeared from shelves in May 23. It seems that manufacturers are realizing that to truly make a go of it in plant-based requires unfeasibly large marketing budgets at this point in time. And the thing is, most of the chitter-chatter around why plant-based is failing to go mainstream is often around shortcomings in product performance. But in this article, Nestlé's head man in Singapore suggests that it could be the way retailers and manufacturers are framing products and the category at large that could be one of the main reasons behind the intention gap. Now, this is essentially the difference between people's expressed desire to live more sustainably and their actual behaviour. So, a key quote from this article: "What we are starting to understand is that we need to remove the whole deliberate plant-based notion and find a way that fits consumer needs in a more natural manner. So instead of marketing truffle dim sum as meat-free, it should simply be sold as truffle dim sum." So, let's bring in Dr. Paulina Lang, who is Head of Behavioural Science with the MMR Group. Paulina, surely behavioural science can add something here.
Hello. Yes, behavioral science definitely has things to add. So let me start by saying that Nestlé and other companies are definitely onto something here, as the conversation is moving on from alternatives and meat-free options to something more inclusive for general public and normalizing sustainable options. So Nestlé's approach is really a testament to the power of language and framing it in food choices. So from a behavioral science perspective, it makes a lot of sense to shift from highlighting what's absent in a product to highlighting what it does offer. And this is because we're very sensitive to losses. So signaling what the product doesn't have can distract consumers from the things it has. But we know that even labels like plant-based or vegan can have a negative connotation, especially for those who don't identify as such.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you a bit more about this intention gap, this gap between people's expressed intentions to live more sustainably and their actual behaviour. How can brands, do you think, use language, be it advertising or on pack, to close this intention action gap and ultimately promote more sustainable living?
So language is a really powerful tool that can shape consumers' perceptions and behaviors. And research shows that people are drawn to descriptions that evoke indulgence and sensory pleasure. So it's not just about the ingredients, it's about the experience products offer. And I want to tell you about a study which was conducted jointly by the World Resources Institute and the Behavioral Insights team. And they used an online experiment to look at the impact that the language used to present vegetarian options on a menu had on people's choices. And they found that the term meat-free discouraged consumers from choosing vegetarian dishes. But plant-based dishes that were named specifically to appeal to pleasure and sounded indulgent were preferred even by meat eaters. So, for example, people preferred field-grown breakfast over meat-free breakfast, or spicy burger with relish over black bean burger. So these findings would suggest that brands, and perhaps restaurants too, should avoid signaling restraint and loss aversion, and instead focus on appealing to positive motivations, like eating delicious and enjoyable food that is also sustainable.
So some brilliant examples there, actually. So what do you see as the main behavioural challenges when moving away from labels like plant-based or meat-free?
Yeah, it's a delicate balance between normalizing sustainable options and serving the needs of specific consumer groups. So if the goal is to get more omnivores to choose sustainable options, avoiding labels like meat-free or plant-based seems to be the way to go. But we shouldn't forget about consumers who actually rely on these labels to guide their choices and help them quickly spot products that align with their dietary needs and preferences. We know from a survey done on vegan food labeling that 2/3 of people on a plant-based diet find that labels actively help them to make informed purchases. So removing these labels could disadvantage them and introduce some friction into their decision-making process, and as a consequence, make shopping a little harder.
Have you any suggestions, any solutions that could probably address this problem?
Yes, definitely. They may not be perfect, but there are definitely things that can be done. And as a matter of fact, Burger King have experimented with the idea of disrupting beef as the default, which is slightly surprising given it's Burger King. But if you went to Burger King in Austria during the campaign and ordered a burger, you'd be asked if you wanted it normal or with meat, with normal here being a plant-based patty. So it was just an experiment, but it's not that hard to imagine a world where plant-based, sustainable options are the norm and products with animal ingredients are the ones that come with a label like contains meat. But perhaps a less radical idea would be to consider the hierarchy of communication. And what I mean by that is brands could still label vegan and vegetarian products, but maybe less prominently. And this could be by using smaller fonts or placing those labels on the back of the package. And this would mean this would maintain useful signaling to a degree without overwhelming the main primary message, which would focus on appealing to all consumers. At the moment, it's hard to avoid some sort of trade-off between normalizing more sustainable products and making life a little more difficult for those who currently rely on these products being clearly labeled. I don't think we have arrived at a perfect solution yet, so there's definitely work to be done by brands, but it's an exciting challenge to innovate in this space and change consumer behaviors towards a more sustainable future.
Wow. Well, Paulina, it's been fascinating talking to you. I think it's quite clear we'll have you back in future episodes to see where behavioral science can have a useful role to play. So thank you again, Paulina.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay, let's talk about store brands, because store brands have really been rocketing of late, haven't they, all over the world, not least because I think shoppers they've got a keen eye on value more than ever before. But I think, to be fair, you've probably seen some store brands doing some remarkable stuff, really, coming out with something new and different. Wouldn't you say, Caitlin?
I agree, Andy, and I think continuing that momentum, some retailers are now bringing out low-cost dupes of trending brands, such as Sol de Janeiro, which is a quite popular personal care brand. And this really delights Gen Z into that bargain. So for our first episode, we've borrowed some original sensory specialists from MMR to investigate store brand ranges from both the UK and the US. Fiala, how did this assignment compare to your day job?
Hi, Caitlin. Well, I had great fun. My day job involves me thinking objectively about products and product experiences. That means that when I wander around supermarkets, I'm just a little bit obsessed about sensory touch points. That's everything to do with the shapes, the sizes, the weights, the labels, how the packaging feels when you touch it, any sounds or sensations resulting from that interaction. I'm always thinking, what are these sensory touch points communicating? So last week, I visited Morrison. That's a UK supermarket that's got some interesting in-store theatre going on. For example, their in-store wide sub-brand called Nutmeg. If you put Nutmeg and Morrison's into a search engine, you'll see how extensive that range is.
For those who'd like to do a little bit more of a deep dive on the brand, we do have an Instagram, so listen to the end of this podcast for more information on how to follow.
Yeah, for the podcast, I actually bought 2 Nutmeg skincare products, a moisturiser and an exfoliating wash. The pack designs are beautifully simple, making them easy to buy, and they use kind of subtle colour coding to distinguish one from the other. For example, the green for the exfoliator and pink for the moisturiser. What's clever about sub-brands like Nutmeg is that they can recruit people into own-label brands right across the store. A good experience in one category must surely encourage trial in another. For example, I just bought their cake tins, Nutmeg cake tins. The Nutmeg brand lands the notion that less is more. But this is a careful balance to walk here, because research has shown that simply designed packaging can cue up a perception of cleaner, of purer products. However, for an own-label store product, the balance to get right is to avoid going very basic, too simplistic, because that can lead to consumers questioning the quality of the product. In that regard, a standout range that celebrates the idea that less is more is the M&S cleaning range. And again, stick M&S cleaning range into a search engine and you'll see what I mean. And for me, this has got the balance right. Visually, the range is definitely impact-making. Packaging is clean and simple, but it also oozes sophistication, giving it a kind of high-end Art Deco look. And there are similarities with the Empire State Building here. These cleaners deliver very distinctive sensory signatures for the space, which make them more memorable than many of the brands operating in the same area. But unlike Morrison's and Nutmeg, this M&S range is plant-based forward, with its label promoting biodegradable ingredients. The branding also takes on social and environmental themes, with additional information on the back of the pack, keeping the front label much cleaner. It's actually quite a classy look. These products are a really good example of keeping it appropriately clean and simple. Many other products seem hell-bent on cramming as much information that they want you to know on the front of their labels, and this can make buying decisions a little bit complex. M&S clearly think that their shoppers trust them to make good products, hence choosing not to have it all over the front label.
Yeah, they do look very beautiful, Fiona. They almost draw upon the beauty category.
You're absolutely right. And this analogy carries on into the aroma of the products. So for the bathroom surface cleaner, it tells me it's eucalyptus and sage. Clever. Eucalyptus is often found in high-end spas and shops because of its sophisticated smell. Plus, eucalyptus is known for its antimicrobial properties. The smell of these products is really well designed. For example, the washing up liquid is described as Italian lemon and ginger, and the odour journey of using the washing up liquid starts with dispensing it, the aroma as it hits the water. And when you disturb the bubbles, you get another release of odour. Your hands smell of Italian lemon. And when you pull the plug as the water drains away, you get some more snatches of that lemon note. There is an opportunity to finesse the nuance and balance of the odours. I think they could be tweaked and optimised a bit, but all told, this sophisticated look almost wants you to have them on display rather than keeping them in a cleaning product cupboard.
I do love what M&S has done. Now, any podcast around store brands cannot ignore the huge interest in product dupes. And Rachel, I think you've been to Aldi to find some, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I've been looking at their La Cura range, which has a variety of dupes, including Elemis and Charlotte Tilbury in there. I've been testing a dupe of a hair serum by The Ordinary. They've just launched last month. It's called La Cura's Multi-Peptide Serum for Hair and Scalp. So this claims to fuel hair growth and support hair density, and it contains caffeine in this one, so very similar ingredient list to that of The Ordinary product. So it might seem a little bit weird to buy skin and hair care from the same place we buy our frozen chips from. So they've put quite a lot of effort into making the product look good, very similar at brand level as well. So just like The Ordinary, the branding looks very clinical. And this is really cued by what isn't there, so what's not on the packaging. It's a very stripped back, two-tone box that uses all the real estate to describe the ingredients. And then once you unpackage it, it comes in a lovely amber glass bottle and has a little pipette for application as well. So these features say, take me seriously. Then this tinted glass really signifies premium because it's typically used in pharmaceuticals to safeguard the contents from light. And the pipette is really great because on one hand, you can be very precise with your application into your hair. But also some people, myself included, love feeling like a chemist when doing their hair and skincare routines. So it's really great for kind of giving that alchemy feeling when you're in the bathroom. Then these lovely minimalist cues when extended to the serum itself. It's a lovely clear, non-aromatic, non-greasy formula. So I think it's a really great dupe actually because it's a real steal at $3.99 and the Ordinary product is around 20 quid usually. And then the most expensive one I've seen in this category is actually £170. So it's a very accessible entry point for everyone.
Well, I'm sold. Do you think you could bring some over for me next time you visit?
Of course I could.
Didn't you also spot something interesting in Waitrose? I think that's a slightly higher end supermarket in the UK, right?
Yeah, that's right. So Waitrose here in the UK is creating a really cool impulsive dynamic around tinned fish. So I'm talking about things like tinned mackerel, tinned sardines, that kind of thing. Tinned fish had a bit of an image problem for a long time because it's looked very boring and been very functional before. But it's had quite a big makeover in the past few years because the tins have been really beautified. So they're becoming almost like collectibles, very different, pretty patterns, and much more of an impulsive category when you're walking past them and you see them on the shelf and think, that's so pretty, I want to have that in my room, or in my kitchen rather. So we've had increased access to brands like Ortiz from Spain, which have really bold, bright designs and beautiful maximalist designs from Fishwife as well. So a lot of this has been led by social media with the whole girl dinner, CQ3 and tomato girl summer trends, if you're familiar with those. So Waitrose seems to be really ahead of the curve here for a supermarket brand actually, and are really playing in a different league with their packaging. One thing I really like is they're actually working really hard to suggest freshness, which isn't usually associated with tinned food. So they've cued this with Mediterranean colour palette and illustrations of fish like leaping out of the ocean. And then this actually continues through to the product itself. I saw some lovely little bits of small lemon in their sardines, which really improved the experience for me as well. So yeah, fantastic.
Wow, there are some true art pieces out there in tin fish packaging these days. And we've seen similar displays rise in the US. So, well-known Portuguese shop, The Fantastic World of the Portuguese Sardine, which is famous for its aesthetics and its setup as a veritable tin fish library, has even set up shop in Times Square, just adding to the color and vibrancy there. Similarly, we touched on the elevated aesthetics of Trader Joe's earlier in our podcast. Though I wouldn't exactly call their products dupes, they do often strive to identify the best snacks from around the world and seek inspiration to make them accessible to American consumers, often with a twist. Andy's immersion in the shop yielded 2 interesting products that well represent Trader Joe's approach to stocking the snack shelves. So our first product, a crispy, crunchy mochi rice nugget snack, are a take on classic Japanese snacks. So these small star shapes of slightly salted rice flour provide a really satisfying bite to salads, soups, or just some time on the couch. While rice flour touts a chewier feel, it also allows these elevated croutons to be gluten-free, which is an added bonus for those with dietary restrictions. We've also got some chocolatey drizzled strawberry kettle pop, which provides a great balance of sweet and savory from the chocolatey kernels against a fruity punch of freeze-dried strawberry. Now, these pieces really lend a nostalgic, children's cereal-type feel, but in a sophisticated adult format, so you don't have to feel bad about eating the entire bag.
Okay, Caitlin, well, don't get used to me buying you snacks. But honestly, is it enough to topple M&S's cleaning range? Because Fiala's clearly smitten with it. Are you always cleaning your house now, Fiala?
No, I'm going to let you think that. Yeah, I am very smitten with these. It's the completeness of it. It's not just the fact that the pack is clean and simple and yet very sophisticated. The odours they're using are, fairly clean and simple, but very sophisticated. And there's a journey to them. They're not just a one-hit or wonder. They're carrying on throughout the whole journey of using the product, even to the extent with the shower. After you sprayed that, if you jump in the shower afterwards, you get an eucalyptus smell. That's a lot of thoughts gone into that experience.
Yeah. Can you rival that, Caitlin, with your mochi snacks?
I think it's challenging to say who's the best duper of them all. But I think we can agree that within each Marks & Spencer and Trader Joe's, we see an acute desire to provide better experiences for their consumers by seeking inspiration from products that exist on the market and are already well-loved, but can potentially be elevated and evolved to provide something even more special.
Well, yeah, we can all agree with that one. Great. You're listening to the Impact Makers podcast, and now it's time for our very first edition of The Z Factor. Now, Gen Z might represent the world's newest shoppers, but they're also the most influential. Manufacturers are climbing over themselves to capture their attention, create products that compete for views on TikTok. How could we not do a feature on what is rocking Gen Z's world right now? And to help us understand what is rocking their world, I have Shania from the Together agency. Shania, tell us about your day job.
Yeah, hi. So my official title is Junior Social Media Manager, but I'd like to think of myself as somewhat of a self-proclaimed TikTok expert.
Fantastic. You are just the person we need to speak to. And we did ask you, didn't we, to report on some of the latest TikTok trends.
Yeah.
What have you got for us?
So you've likely heard a lot about Sol de Janeiro lately.
Mm-hmm.
Well, UK-based Home Bargains is one of the latest retailers to dupe this brand. So TikTok has been going crazy about that.
I mean, they do say, don't they, that imitation is the ultimate form of flattery, but with Gen Z's sort of famously cash-strapped budget, we are surely not going to see an end to this whole dupe craze anytime soon, don't you think?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's almost a disincentive for brands to launch something new and disruptive, especially when everything can be copied so blatantly.
Yeah.
So from a food and beverage perspective, there's been quite a bit of talk around alternatives and dupes for Whispering Angel Rosé. So this wine has been viral for quite some time. Apparently it tastes amazing, but I've never tried it. However, it's quite pricey at about £20 a bottle. So TikTokers have been on the hunt for something similar. In kind of the same space, chicken wine, it's not actually called chicken wine, it just has an image of a chicken on the front. That's made the rounds on TikTok, and much like Whispering Angel, it's a rosé that's gone viral for its really sweet taste. However, it's priced at a much more sensible £8.50.
Chicken wine, okay. So beyond products, what sort of lifestyle TikTok trends are probably worth noting if you're a manufacturer?
Yeah, so a TikTok trend or type of video that may appeal to CPG brands is my 5 to 9 before my 9 to 5 or vice versa. So this is essentially content that shows morning routines or after work routines, but it's a really great way to include products in an organic and authentic way avoiding looking too staged. So it's an easy way to show off beauty products for L'Oreal, for example, while getting ready for the day, or to include food and beverage products when making breakfast or packing lunch.
Okay, so yeah, this is something I hadn't heard of, Shania, this sort of 5 to 9 trend. One that I have clocked onto was the hashtag glimmers. So this was this Gen Z trend of, revealing relatively cheap and accessible ways of adding a little joy to the day. Is that still doing the rounds?
Yes, so I've heard of glimmers, but I would probably associate it now with the more evolving idea of romanticizing your life. So this is a concept that blew up on TikTok, and like glimmers, it encourages finding joy in the really small moments of life. So you'll come across videos of users pouring their Diet Coke into a fancy wine glass with ice cubes in, or filming themselves journaling in a park. And it's all in the name of this romanticizing your life.
Yes, I think we can all do with that. Great way to end. Thank you, Shania. I will have you back because it's a really valuable feature for us to understand, what is actually setting the world alight for younger generations. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We'll hear from you again. Bye-bye.
Great thing about the Impact Makers podcast is that we can really tap into the latest consumer research tools, courtesy of MMR Research, of course. So in future episodes, we'll ask our friendly chatbot to get out there and discover what people really think about the latest products. But for our very first episode, we've got some highlights from some especially commissioned video vox pops.
We have indeed. And for this episode, we wanted to find out how the rise of store brands is playing out in the homes of actual consumers across the US and the UK. And we got some great footage. And we were tasked with picking out the best bits. So we got 3 tales for you here that best reflect the people's vibe. So let's have a listen.
So the branded product I usually buy is this Schweppes lemonade. I usually buy it because it's a really tasty product. It's great for mixing with alcoholic drinks and also having on its own with ice. So it's great quality. I trust the brand and it's got a great flavour. But I've also brought today this Asda Classic Lemonade. So it was a lot cheaper, which is great. It seems to be good value for money. It was really easy to find because there was probably 4 or 5 times as more of it than there was the Schweppes. I think the taste was fairly similar. I'd say it's a little bit lower quality, a little bit less tasty, but that is perfectly fine with me. If I'm having it with an alcoholic drink, a rum, or a whiskey maybe, then you won't taste the difference anyway. I think for the kids, they won't really care anyway. So give them the non-branded one will be fine. I think I'll probably pick the Schweppes one for special occasions.
My experience consuming the store brand product, which is the Magic Treasures Great Value from Walmart, it's a good experience. This actually isn't the first time that I've had this brand. I don't really get it a lot unless I'm on a really, really strict budget when it comes to cereal. But like I said, it's not bad. My daughter actually, she could eat them every day. Honestly, for me, I probably will go back to buying the original brand, the Lucky Charms, the General Mills, only because I'm a big cereal person. I love cereal. Usually the store brand names, I always get, anything else, I always get the store brand names. But for some reason with cereal, I gotta go with the actual brand.
So for kitchen cleaner, I normally use the Flash Kitchen Degrease Spray with Fairy included. But for the store-bought alternative, I have picked up the Tesco Antibac Kitchen Foaming Cleaner with bleach. It definitely cleans in the way that I would expect it to, and it compares quite successfully to the branded product. The only kind of drawback to the product is the way that it sprays out. I'll try and show you now. But it kind of leaks out, and it isn't particularly direct in its application, but as you'll see, after a quick wipe, it completely cleans the surface and does the job for less than a third of the price of the branded product. So I'm very happy with it.
Wow, it's really interesting to hear such consistency of feedback between perceptions of store brand and private label across a wide variety of categories. So it seems like there's this kind of inexplicable nostalgia and perceived quality of Lucky Charms for our cereal lover that's really the differentiating X factor that we find kind of unattainable for our store brands. And similarly, keeps this Schweppes product in rotation and is just elevating it to special occasions instead of being fully replaced by a store brand product. So it seems consumers are willing to pay a bit more for familiar experiences. Those similar experiences at a savings are becoming more acceptable, especially if they still achieve the end goal, like a cleaning spray.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think with the cleaning spray, it's a tall order, isn't it, for brands to outperform store brands when they're 3 times the price. I think it must come down to that trigger spray and how it impacts the perceived cleaning power of what there follows. I mean, we got some indication that it was having an effect in that clip, right, Caitlin?
Absolutely. You know, over my storied product research career here at NMR, we've certainly found that the sound, the feel, some of those more subliminal key sensory characteristics that we pay less attention to as consumers when it comes to cleaning sprays or home care products actually have a significant impact on the perceived efficacy and efficiency of the product, because not only is it about the ease of use and how far that spray might go, but it's about making sure that they're getting all of the product out of the bottle and it's being dispersed in the best possible way.
Wow.
Well, that's a wrap, Andrew. Time to get back to our day jobs now.
Yeah, but it has been fun packed, Caitlin.
Really has. So what have we got coming up?
Well, you don't want to miss our next episode. Well, I hope you're going to be here, Caitlin. It's called Adventures in Beverages. Now, beverages has to be one of the most dynamic categories out there right now. I mean, it's accessing all areas, isn't it? So we're going to be talking to John Kelly, who is the Director of Strategy with Kerry. He knows a thing or two about flavour trends, so you want to listen to that. And then we're also featuring WGSN, who are the world's leading consumer forecasting company, and they know about product trends.
Great stuff, Andy. And I think you're meeting with a mover and shaker in alcoholic beverages as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I can't wait for that. So he's got a serious alternative to that shots moment, and I'm intrigued. So find out.
Yeah, piqued my interest as well. So we hope you've enjoyed our first crack at podcasting. Thanks for tagging along, and please stay with us on this journey. We'll do our best each week to make sure we all learn something interesting and exciting about the products that are on our shelves. So until our adventures in beverages.
Goodbye.
Bye.